guys, and welcome to this VOLKSWAGEN video. Now in today's video I'm hopefully going to answer the question a lot of you guys have been asking since the Golf GTI TCR hit the showrooms in early 2019, and that is it worth the significant premium over the already excellent Golf GTI Performance? Back in 2018 I made a little video saying that the Golf GTI Performance was probably all the hot hatch you could ever need, and yet 2 years later I haven't bought one of those. I bought the TCR. So you probably know my views on this, but the purpose of this video is for you to see the changes and for you to decide for yourself whether it's worth paying the extra for the TCR. But before we have a closer look at this car, let me just say thanks to everybody who has subscribed. The numbers are going up really nicely and we should be at 20k in July, which is an amazing achievement. If you haven't subscribed already though, please do so. There's a link in the description below. Just click on that, click the notification icon if you can as well, and that would be excellent. Right, now let's have a close look at what makes up this Golf GTI TCR. Okay, firstly let's start by talking about the styling changes over the Golf GTI Performance that you get with the Golf GTI TCR. Now no panels are different, but it's what they've clipped onto those panels that make all the difference, especially when they're all combined as a package like they are on this car. So firstly at the front we've got a standard GTI bumper, but with what they call a motorsport splitter, which is a little bit deeper than that on the standard car. The sills are covered for the first time, I think, with the Mark 7.5 with a full width sill cover. Normally they have a bit sticking out about here and then the bottom of the sill still exposed. That looks a lot beefier. At the back we've got this stick-on spoiler extension, which isn't as cool as the bespoke thing we had on the Club Sport and Club Sport S, but it works on this car rather nicely. That's pretty subtle though compared to the diffuser, which has got this massive wing bit on it. So when the Mark 7 GTI came out, you really got a tiny bit of this, and then 7.5 it probably doubled, and on this TCR it's doubled again, and then we've got like a very heavily profiled diffuser down there for a proper motorsport look. It does look a pretty serious piece of kit. Now you could spec the TCR honeycomb decals on the door and the quarter panel, but if you didn't spec those you'd get this as standard anyway, which is good enough for most people and relatively subtle, but enough to make it look different to a normal GTI. You also got matte black mirror covers, which I've said before look a bit cheap, especially when everything else on the car is gloss. You could spec carbon fibre mirror covers, but they're about £450, and yeah, a lot of money if you break one presumably, or someone breaks it for you. Now let's talk about the colour. So this isn't a standard colour, so you don't get it for free within the premium you pay for the TCR, but the fact you can spec a unique colour to the TCR does give it a bit of an advantage over the normal GTI, which is only available in the normal Golf colour palette. It's not to everybody's taste, but a lot of people love this kind of primer coloured grey, so the fact you can order that I think makes the TCR a little bit more special for a lot of people. The other thing that costs more, but again the fact you can order it means a lot, is that you can have a black roof, which is probably a few £100 extra, but gives the car a bit more of a hardcore look, and it ties in with all these glossy bits that you don't get on the normal car. So spec like this in particular, it's an amazing looking car and looks a lot more beefy and aggressive than the standard GTI, which still looks good, but this is next level aesthetically. Before we have a look inside, let's just talk about the brakes. Now there's no point in me demonstrating these when I'm driving, because really you're only going to feel the benefit of these when you're driving on track. Compared to the standard GTI Performance, they're the same size, but the most important thing is that they're 2P, so an aluminium bell, steel disc. This is a very, very rare thing on a Golf. Originally it was on the Golf R32 Mark IV, didn't come back for the Mark V or 6. It only came on the Mark 7 Club Sport S, then it became part of the Performance pack on the Golf R, and now it's back as standard on the TCR, which is a nice touch because these are much better at dissipating heat when you're driving on track. The calipers are the same as GTI Performance with the GTI logo on them. Apparently the pads are a different compound to make them more resistant to overheating, so yeah, really need to try that on track one day soon. Right, let's have a look at the interior of the Golf GTI TCR. Now, first thing to point out is that a standard GTI interior has only got a cloth seat fabric. On this car we've got, well, probably fake leather, I imagine, and then probably fake suede Alcantara, and then this flash red fabric in the middle. So compared to a cloth trim, this is a bit more interesting and therefore would be an extra on a normal GTI. You could order Art Velours, which was probably a similar standard of trim. I think that was about 1,300 quid extra. So the interior is a more expensive interior than the standard GTI. It's not revolutionary different in here, but with the seat fabric, I think a bit more stitching in red here and there, and a steering wheel which isn't as cool as the one on the Club Sport and Club Sport S because it's not Alcantara, but it's a lot easier to live with. This is different to the GTI Performance because it's got this perforated section here, and it's got this dead ahead marker there, so I don't know if that's for understeer or oversteer. Maybe I'll find out on track one day. Other than that, it's pretty familiar Golf GTI. We've got a red flash on the gear stick on the DSG selector there, which isn't on the Performance. We've got this Alcantara, what they call it microfiber or something, gear gaiter. So that would work nicely with a retrimmed steering wheel if you're that way inclined. We've got red trim on the floor mats and a GTI badge. And before I forget, you get TCR on the floor when you open the door in the dark, which is a nice touch. Obviously you can spec different wheels to standard. These are not VW wheels, so it's hard for me to show you that, but the standard wheels are pretty plain 18-inch wheels. The other thing that's different though, if you spec dynamic chassis control like this car has got, the car sits 5mm lower than either a GTI Performance or a TCR without DCC, which does give it a lovely stance. I've got to say, not just the colour and the black roof and all the body styling, but the actual stance of the car really does mark it out as different to the usual GTI. Now the exhaust is the same size as standard, which got quite big when it came to 7.5 as you can see, but the TCR benefits from a freer flowing exhaust apparently, which I will demonstrate now at idle. It is quite loud. So yeah, it's quite loud, probably just about the right side of annoying, but when you drive it, it can be quite refined if you put it into comfort mode. But we don't want to do that. Let's go and have a proper drive now on these amazing roads that go through this lovely part of Suffolk. Okay guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Golf GTI TCR. Now we'll talk about the car's raucous exhaust again shortly, but firstly let's talk about DCC, Dynamic Chassis Control. It's been an option on Golf 7 since it came out. It's about £1,000. Basically it's electronically controlled adaptive dampers. They've got 3 switchable modes: Comfort, Normal and Sport. The complication with TCR is that they're also available as part of the Performance Pack, which is £2,000 to £3,000 and also gives you a raised speed limiter and 19-inch wheels. The difference in price is because if you spec Pretorias and Cup 2s, they cost more than P0s and Reifnitz wheels. Now the first thing you notice about DCC in the TCR is that comfort mode isn't particularly comfortable. We're on this relatively well surfaced B road and I can feel every little ripple in the tarmac. I'm definitely in comfort mode. I'm pretty sure it's still more comfortable than a TCR on passive dampers, but it's not as soft as you'd get in a performance model or a Golf R. You can feel a load of wallow in those cars. You wouldn't feel anything on this kind of road. And that also relates to the way that sport mode feels. So on those cars, I think you can use sport mode on a road if you want. On this car, it's pretty hard. So again, every little ripple now I'm bobbing around on, and that's not really a problem. People say that sort of sport mode and race mode being hard on the road is bad, but really for this car it's perfectly fine, because you don't use it on the road. You use normal mode, which is perfectly well judged in most situations. You just use comfort mode for speed humps or a particularly broken up road, but normal mode is lovely and well resolved on even a UK B road. It's got a little bit of compliance, but it feels nice. Everything feels nice. Steering, throttle response, it's all good. You've got individual mode if you want to mix and match. The good thing about sport mode being so hard is that when you get on the track, which basically that's what this car is designed to be, it's designed to be a daily driver you can take on the track with no modifications. When you get on the track, it will feel lovely. A car that feels comfortable on the road is going to feel too soft on the track, and in sport mode now it feels great. You've got a bit more weight to the steering, throttle response is a bit more over this crest. The damping is just very tightly clenched. But the big benefit of the TCR over the performance model is that we have got power, 290 PS instead of 245. That's 18%, which means when you put your foot down, it does shift. And it's not just outright power, it's the way it produces that power. A lot of it is at the top end of the rev counter, which means that it just makes it a lot more exciting to wind up. So that's 3,000 revs, 4, 5. There's a distinct shove as it gets to 5,000, which is pretty atypical for the AA AAA engine, which is normally a very linear performer. Yes, those extra brakes might come in handy. That's just so much fun. That's in sport mode. Let's just put it into normal then, which I think is a bit more suited to this kind of road. Got a lovely sweeping corner now, so let's just pitch it in. Don't panic brake. Lovely, lovely, not a lot of roll. Bit of compliance on that bump on the corner, which really does tell you how good the damping is on this car. And we're off. That is the best GTI I've ever driven on the road for sure. Another little difference with TCR over performance, which again adds to its track readiness, is that you can turn off the ESC when I press the right button. Sorry, so used to pressing mode. Okay, so you can turn off ESC partially, so it's restricted but not fully off. If you hold it down for a couple of seconds, it says, instead of restricted with a big bong, ESC off. ESC is now totally deactivated, so you're totally on your own. Which makes an exciting car even more exhilarating. Okay guys, let's finally talk about the Golf GTI TCR's exhaust sound. So you've heard it at idle, it's definitely got a louder burble to it than the GTI Performance, but when you're on the road it's also got pops and crackles, which as a man of mine not so modest years is probably not a great thing to admit I like, but on an empty country road like this, what's the harm in it? So the car's in sport mode now, which I think you need to be into to get them, and you can either do it just by revving and lifting off, or if you drop a gear, say from 4th to 3rd, We haven't got a parcel shelf in now, so it's probably a bit louder than normal, but they're definitely happening. Which is pretty cool, because the only GTI I've heard them on before is the Club Sport S. Not even the Club Sport had them. Although that did a fart every time you started it out, which could be a bit embarrassing. This is a little bit more subtle, but they're definitely still there. Okay guys, well, I've enjoyed driving the Golf GTI TCR so much, I've actually run out of road. We've got the River Deben in front of us and the North Sea at Felixstowe. So you can probably work out what my verdict is on the Golf GTI TCR. I think it's well worth the £5,000 premium over the GTI Performance for my weird, probably needs. I want a comfortable daily driver that's reasonably good on fuel, but I also want a car that I can have good fun on a B road, and even occasionally take it on track without having to do any modifications to it. And when I get on track, I want it to be competitive, safe, and ideally overtake a few Porsches, as we'll hopefully do later this summer. Now, whether this car suits your needs, well, hopefully this video will help you work out whether it's worth paying the extra over the GTI Performance. If you're an enthusiast, you will be overwhelmed with how brilliant this car is. You probably don't need to take it on track just to enjoy the body styling and the unique bits and pieces like the deadhead marker and the interior. So yeah, it's, I think, my favourite GTI of all time, easily. The Club Sport S is a remarkable piece of engineering, but a GTI needs to be practical and comfortable, and I think that went a little bit too far in the name of hardcore. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this VOLKSWAGEN video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, please comment, please share, please, as ever, subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one, hopefully very soon.